So if you draw a line from A through L, M, and OP, and continue on to X, Y, and Z, that was the initial of my last name. And I can here tell you that being the last online through my grade school and even into my middle school was quite dispiriting and difficult. In fact, I began to rail against authority, like who created this alphabet rule, and and what was that really about? That I was always the last in line, and that the teacher would always say, "Okay, class, let's stand up in alphabetical order and proceed neatly to the library." Or let's stand up in alphabetical order and go for recess. And being on the last in line, imagine going through recess and all the good toys and all the bats and the balls and all the things were gone. And all that's left for me is like a deflated basketball or something like that. So, and then the worst of all, of course, was at lunchtime, okay, class, we're having lunch. Stand up in alphabetical order, and we will proceed to the lunchroom. And of course, I was always last. And all that seemed to ever be left for me was like the green Jell-O with the little dot of orange something on top of it, and. And that began to wear on me as a young adult. And even on those occasions when the teacher, Miss Lindover, all bosom and bad skin and frizzy hair, when she would say, "Guess what, today we're going to line up in reverse alphabetical order." And suddenly I found myself at the head of the line, but it was no good. Everybody knew that it was just a temporary thing. And the A's and the B's and the C's would turn to me and go, "Hey, Z-Man, get used to it. It's going to be back to the end of the line tomorrow." And sometimes we would go to trips, little outings and the buses, and once again line up in the parking lot and we will proceed neatly to the bus, and my friends would do the best they could to have a good seat for me, but it just never seemed to work out that way. And I remember on the trip I would either end up next to the porta potty or worse in the little seat that was like a single seat that you would sit up near the front next to the teacher and the driver. And you'd have to listen to all of that nonsense going on, but all the fun, with Mindy Murkow and Ellen Leibowitz in the back, and my best friend Mark Miller. They were having such a good time, and I couldn't do any of that. And I would look over to Miss Lindover, and all I saw that she would be eating black licorice. And she had crooked teeth. And she would sit there with long red nails and pick out the licorice from her teeth. And I was sort of stunted by that memory. But of course, as you get older and you grow up, you realize lines are not determined by the letter of your alphabet. Lines to the grocery store, lines to the movies, stuck in line in traffic because you got going too late. I mean, people began to cut in line. People seeking the vision and climbing the ladder, they would find ways to cut in line and jump ahead. And I was saying to myself, I wonder if I had done that in my life. I wonder how many lines I had crossed, and I wonder how many lines I had jumped across. And I was thinking about that one day, and I sort of nodded off in my sleep. And the next minute, I woke up, and I was on my final line. I was on the final line. I was on the line that moved up through the clouds, surrounded by cherubs and trumpet and all that kind of stuff. And the line kept moving. And I asked somebody, I asked somebody in front of me, what happened? And a man says, well, I was on an icy road and we hit a tree. And oh, really? And then I asked the woman next to me, what happened to you? Well, she had unfortunately succumbed to a fatal diagnosis. And meanwhile, the line is moving, and it's moving closer and closer. And I can see that at the end of the line, there is a terminal of some sort. And people are punching numbers, and they're punching digits into this console. And I asked somebody, what is that about? So, well, you have to have your PIN. You have to have your password to go through. And as it was going through, I saw that it was my turn. And unfortunately, I had died that morning. I was hit by a garbage truck while walking my dog, Zaz, and I only had my flip-flops on. Of course, I didn't have my my iPhone or anything. I had no identification, nothing. And I'm standing at the terminal, punch in the numbers, password incorrect, please try again. And I tried it again, punched in different, password incorrect, please try again. Finally, I tried it one more time, and it said, password incorrect, your account is locked, please step away. And a woman put her arm on my shoulder, and she pulled me away, and I looked up, and it was a beautiful white-haired woman wearing these gowns and everything, and I saw that she had crooked teeth, and that there were still some ancient memories or ancient pieces of black in her teeth. And she says, "What happened to you? What's your name?" And she says, "Well, we can reset your password, but what is your name?" And I said, "Z." And she looked knowingly at me and said, "Oh, you're going to need to go to the end of the line." Thank you very much.